I am a housewife living in an ordinary part of New York. I live happily with my husband, who is the same age as me and works for a company in New York, in a 2 LDK apartment. My husband is a serious and ordinary company employee. We first met at a party. We had similar hobbies and ways of thinking, and we were gradually attracted to each other. Sometimes he is unreliable, but I like his straightforward and sincere personality, so we started dating and got married in just 6 months. My husband has a very talented older sister. She is a career woman who works hard at a top company and was enjoying the life of a single aristocrat. Until 3 months ago, that is. The company underwent a major restructuring, and my sister-in-law was also affected and is now job hunting. She was initially confident that she would find a job right away, but her pride is getting in the way, and she is having trouble finding a job. She is also stubborn and refuses to compromise. She used to buy brand name goods and had no savings. She couldn't afford to pay off her loans with just unemployment insurance, so she moved back in with her mother and is living off her father's survivor's pension. However, since her mother passed away, things have taken a sudden turn for the worse. We were planning to build a house in the future, so my sister-in-law inherited the house, and my mother-in-law inherited the savings and cash left by my father-in-law, which was quite a bit. My husband inherited most of it. My sister-in-law received a small amount of cash, which she used to pay off her brand name goods loan. However, she seems unable to cover her living expenses going forward. One day, my husband told me,
"My sister wants to live with us until she finds a job."
I thought it was a strange and selfish request. I was more worried about whether I could get along with my sister-in-law, so I told my husband how I felt. He said,
"It'll be okay. I'm with you."
So I agreed on the condition that she would work part-time or full-time as a regular employee as soon as possible. Of course, this is only temporary, and I told my husband that I didn't want it to last forever. When we actually started living together, it was more difficult than I thought. My sister-in-law is a terrible person who complains that her brand name goods are worthless when she sells them. I have some brand name goods too, so she uses my clothes and shoes without permission, and even uses my favorite things as if they were her own, which is really the worst. If she had just said,
"Can I borrow it?"
it would have been better, but she has a sense that everything here is hers, which is really annoying. In addition, I'm a housewife, but she pushes everything on me and doesn't do any housework. She also complains a lot about my housework. Her room is also messy, and I have to clean it up. She's like a criminal mastermind, and whenever I'm cleaning my room, she opens her door and says,
"Oh, by the way, do this too."
Which makes me angry. And she yells at me if I do anything wrong with housework or cleaning. I realized that she must have treated her subordinates like this in the past. She gets angry if you touch or move any of her things, even though she uses other people's things without permission. She even made me make her lunch to take to her part-time job because she didn't have any money. When I told my husband, I've had enough. "How long is this going to last?" he said.
"It's not going to last forever, so just do it."
My husband doesn't help with the housework, and he doesn't argue with my sister-in-law at all. I feel like he's worshipping my sister-in-law because he respects her past title. She may have been an amazing person when she was on the fast track to success at a top company, but that's in the past. It has nothing to do with us as a couple. I think she's just a parasite now. Even if I talk to my husband about how I'm being used by my sister-in-law, he just says,
"My sister is probably saying that for your growth."
And nothing gets resolved. I wonder why he's so protective of my sister-in-law, and I feel lonely doing the housework alone every day. One day, while shopping, I happened to run into a colleague of my sister-in-law's at the same workplace. I had previously delivered something my sister-in-law had forgotten and was acquainted with her. While chatting, the colleague said,
"Your sister-in-law is the #1 person I want to marry."
I said, "Really? That's surprising. She doesn't do any housework at home, and her room is really messy. She loves brand name goods and was in loan hell. She's living with us because she has no money, but she doesn't put any money into the house. I make her lunch every morning to take to work. I accidentally said it, or maybe I said it on purpose. I guess I wanted to say this much. The next day, I received an email from my sister-in-law. The contents were,
Don't say anything unnecessary to people at work. Be prepared when you get home today.
She's a hysterical woman, and I don't know what she'll do if she gets angry, so I decided to escape to my parents' house. I emailed my husband, my mother at home seems to be feeling unwell, so I'm going to check on her. Please take care of things while I'm gone. The next day, my sister-in-law sent me another email saying,
I didn't have lunch to take to work, so I had to make one myself. It looked terrible, and I was embarrassed. Take responsibility.
I was shocked by that email. The reason she didn't have lunch to take to work was because she couldn't cook. I couldn't understand why she was so angry with me. That night, my husband called me. He was furious and said,
My sister was embarrassed at work because you didn't make her lunch. I never thought you would be so heartless to my sister. If that's the case, I'll divorce you.
I was stunned. Is my sister-in-law a princess? I don't want to be exhausted by my sister-in-law anymore. I realized that I had no allies, and it was too painful to bear. My husband, who had reassured me at first, had changed. Maybe he was that kind of person from the beginning. The fact that he didn't do anything when my sister-in-law was bullying me was the last straw. I agreed to the divorce. I replied to my husband's angry words with a yes, and hung up the phone. When we lived together, my husband was kind and I loved him, but now he's a follower of my sister-in-law for some reason. He's so serious that once he's brainwashed, he becomes blind. I'm tired of my sister-in-law and my husband. With that in mind, I decided to get a divorce. I felt lucky to be free from that hell, and suddenly I felt better. Then my husband called me again because I wasn't coming back home. He said,
Was that a joke the other day?
I told him all my feelings over the phone. My husband panicked and said, let's talk tomorrow with the three of us. I agreed to meet them to clear my mind. The next day, the three of us met at a diner in town. As soon as we sat down, I vented all my frustrations to the two of them. Then my sister-in-law got angry. She said,
Since you're living in someone else's house, it's only natural that the people who live there do all the housework. So everything I've been telling you is only natural.
I was so angry with her selfish argument that I told her I only lived there because I had no choice. I didn't really want to live there. My sister-in-law got furious and said,
You're getting too big for your britches.
She was about to throw a glass of water at me when someone from the next table spoke up. My sister-in-law's colleague said,
Is your sister-in-law really like that?
They were a group of my sister-in-law's colleagues who happened to be sitting at the next table. They were shocked by my sister's terrible attitude. Her colleague said,
She's really good at her job, and her boss said he could recommend her for a full-time position.
And included my sister-in-law. My sister-in-law was stunned. She tried to explain the situation, but her colleagues, who knew everything, wouldn't listen. Her colleague said,
Even if she's good at her job, she might not need a company with that kind of personality.
and whispered. My sister-in-law went crazy in the store. My husband grabbed her and rushed out of the store so as not to cause any trouble. The next day, the two of us met at the invitation of my husband. It seems that he finally realized my sister-in-law's ugly behavior after seeing her colleague's reaction the other day. My husband came to his senses and apologized sincerely. However, I told him that my feelings were already set. Do you know how hard it was for me? Even if you apologize now, those feelings won't go away. Besides, isn't it strange for an adult to want to live with someone else just because they can't make a living? It's childish. It was strange to accept that in the first place. That's your fundamental mistake. I've already told my parents that we're getting a divorce when I went back to my parents' house the other day. If there's any trouble, he said he would introduce me to a friend who is a lawyer, so let's proceed with the divorce smoothly. I was already calm when I said this to my husband, who had been looking down and listening to me all along. Afterwards, I received half of the savings that we had accumulated for consolation money and building a house, and I went back to my parents' house for the time being. I'm thinking of getting some qualifications while working, but I'll think about the future when things calm down a bit. What happened to my former sister-in-law? She quit because she couldn't stand working there anymore. She was about to become a full-time employee, but her personality got in the way. She missed her chance. From now on, I'll either live alone frugally at my parents' house or live with my husband in one of our homes. Since my parents' house is in my former sister-in-law's name, we could sell it if we wanted to. Well, it doesn't matter to me since it's not my problem. How was it? If only they had the ability to work, a good personality, and thoughtfulness, there would be no complaints. But is there anyone who has all of that? There is no husband who protects his wife because he respects his sister too much. The brother-in-law amplified his sister's dependence. It's hard to live with both sets of parents, but it's not easy to live with your sister-in-law either. Everything was abnormal. Couldn't you avoid divorce? I also think that it's a typical case of, once a woman makes up her mind, her feelings won't change. Thank you for watching.